tragedy of Ken's life being so suddenly cut short when he had much still to share with them. We've come to, as part of our own grieving acceptance of the fact that one who still had so much to contribute, one who seemed so full of life, who was so much valued, so much respected, so much loved, has been suddenly taken from the life of his community and country and from our own lives. But we've come also to pay our tributes to the memory of Ken Gray, to celebrate the many and varied contributions he made to life in this country in general and to Wellington and Porirua in particular, to remember him and to honour that memory. Joy and the family have requested that this occasion not be a traditional funeral ceremony, that it be a living and meaningful celebration of Ken's life. But there will be time as we listen this afternoon for each of us to reflect on our own personal experiences and recollections of Ken and on his contributions to the wider community. We will be led in this reflection by 9 people who between them highlight many of the dimensions of Ken's life, and by 2 groups from Porirua who will make their choral tributes. Before I ask Sam Hunt to begin, there is one request not printed on the sheet. In order to save time between the 2 ceremonies, would those who are going onto the graveside please leave paying your respects to Joy and the family until then, rather than doing so after this service. The first group of personal recollections will be given by Sam Hunt, followed by Chris Ellis, then Annette King. After Annette has spoken, the Porirua Cook Islands group will sing a hymn.
Good afternoon. Since news of Ken's death on Wednesday morning, certainly for me, a lot of lives have been surfacing. I guess the obvious ones, but the beautiful ones, like great old Shakespeare line, "Fear no more the heat of the sun, nor the furious winter's rages. Now thy earthly task is done, O art gone, and pay thy wages. Golden lads and girls all must reside in this and come to dust." There's a lot of lines like that. And there was one particular verse by a poet who I like very much, love very much, the poet of Theodore Roethke. There's a poem that Ken, we didn't always talk about poems, but sometimes I don't want to say this poem. This is sort of 4 lines from a poem, which was a favourite of his. It's called In the Dark, just 4 lines, In a Dark Time. They seem today to be more applicable than ever. In a dark time, the eye begins to see. I meet my shadow in the deepening shade. I hear my echo in the echoing wood. A lord of nature weeping to a tree. And I wanted to mention those lines, and also to say it's just obviously not just lines of poetry that come to mind, but a lot of very, very vivid images. Now is not the time to get into anecdote and recollection, except just a couple of very quick ones. And one is just I was thinking about going past this house at the Horakuri Valley a couple of days ago. The house belonged to the father, Ken, was owning or leasing or something. Anyway, he and I were painting the roof one day. We were up on the roof, and like all roof painters, we started from the middle of the roof, so you work out. Anyway, it was a fine afternoon, and we were gossiping away. Didn't notice the rain clouds, and of course the rain came down, and sort of, well, there was any downpipe, and then we got painted on the inside, which is painted, and sort of to this day, there's this sort of rainbow colour pattern on that roof, so it just was thinking about that. And another not a little thing, a very big and very strong image of my friend, man, was when he launched a book for me in 1987 at Parramatta Boating Club. And I remember when he was standing speaking, it wasn't just what he was saying, which itself was funny and referent and great. But he's standing there with the Kakaho Hills skyline behind. And I remember some lines came to me at the time, something about, I saw a man stand in front of a mountain will do its thing behind a man, and such was the greatness of the man, and such the understanding nature of the mountain. They looked so good together, they could belong to each other. And I just would like to sort of take a chance to say goodbye publicly, and just finish by broadcasting someone else, the little poem I wrote, I think recently, well, I haven't written it, but I hear it. And it's good, it's just a little poem which I like to say, dedicate again. It's called Old Flames. The cabbage tree was, they said, dead. There was nothing there what anyone could do now or any day. How sorry they were and sad. But the cabbage tree heard them. No one noticed it shaking its head. It shook it so hard, stars were said to have spread from where the cabbage tree stood, a blossoming new constellation across the night sky south. Someone said just yesterday, some fires you can't put out. Thank you very much. You're all friend.
Compared to many people that are here today, I knew Ken for a very short time. I knew of him for a long time because, like I say, growing up and being schooled out in Porirua, I followed his political and sporting career in the local papers, and I knew him. But I only met him around this time last year. So I am very honoured to be speaking to you today, and I guess some of you are wondering why I am. The reason for that is that Ken was a man of prodigious energy, and he devoted that energy to many, many fields of endeavour and many enterprises. And I'm here to talk about his association with professional theatre, which is part of his life that some of you may not know about. Ken had been on the Downstage Theatre Trust Board for nearly 3 years when I arrived last year as the general manager. He had a lifelong interest in the theatre, and he had supported Downstage since its very, very early days. And somehow he had found time in his very, very busy life to commit his energies to the board and help growing the Downstage Theatre Company. Two things that immediately impressed me about Ken, or three if you count his size, were his sense of humour and his enormous commitment to what he was about. I think on our first meeting, he got my home telephone number, and he would often ring me, sometimes on a Sunday morning or late at night, with an idea that he'd been thinking about for our most recent show, something about marketing or promoting or something about the way that the plot was developing. And he really had quite a remarkable understanding of theatre. As far as the sense of humour was concerned, I was on my back foot a little bit because I could never quite work out whether or not he was serious. He had a lovely deadpan way of delivering some very provocative lines, and because I was a little nervous, I'd say, could you expand on that, or I could understand. And then suddenly the bottom half of his face would drop open and there'd be this grin as wide as one of his hands about his foot. And you'd realise that he'd been winding you up. And winding up became kind of a feature of our relationship. And maybe that's why I'm here today. And I don't think there were any conversations we had that had a joke or two. When somebody dies, you naturally reflect on the last time you saw them, the last time you spoke to them. And for me that wasn't very hard because it was only Sunday a week ago, 2 days before he died. But I saw him and Joy at a film opening. And he was wearing a very rumpled looking short-sleeved shirt. And I went over and sort of plucked at the sleeve of it and said, "What's this?" Obviously it was a bit of winding up cool for it. And Joy toppled her bound up and broken wrist in explanation for why the shirt was mine. And so that brief social exchange meant that the last words that I said to this very big man were, "Why don't you iron your own shirt, you lazy bugger?" And the grin went out for about 14 inches. And Joy said, "He never has and he never will." Since that seems the most unfortunate, not to mention virtuous way to end our many conversations, I'll say this one last thing to it. Again, I've had a look at the house here today, and I've counted the seats, and I think they're running about 100%. It's a great pity that the average seat price is so low that you can't have everything. And it's also a very great pity that your season was so short. Thank you.
I first met Ken Gray through the legendary Gray Hospitality. Ken was a host for another Labour Party function, one for Margaret Shields. It was being held at his home and I was the guest speaker. And since then I've learned and experienced the famous Gray Hospitality on many occasions. It's something I'm told that goes back to the old days, the days around Granny Gray's kitchen, when people used to gather around the kitchen table, often amongst the cake tins and the mail for the week and even a saddle or two, to sit around and to talk, to laugh and to argue. Ken was a person who used to love to entertain, and he made you feel so welcome. He loved nothing more than a glass of wine, some food and some good political conversation. And he used to like to do it around that breakfast bar in their home in Grays Road. And I think that breakfast bar became an extension of the old kitchen table. It was only 8 weeks ago, many of us gathered at Ken and Joy's home to celebrate his victory in winning the nomination for the Western Hut seat. We gathered around that breakfast bar once more, and to the small hours we argued and talked, with Ken leading the charge about how we should fix the world. Old friends have told me over the last few days some really interesting stories about Ken, and they've asked me if I'd pass them on to you. Ken, I gather, developed an extrasensory perception, which enabled him to be able to sniff out home baking from kilometres away. In fact, he had this ability to track down cake tins and empty them while he was visiting people. And his hosts were delighted because they had partaken of his generosity and his hospitality on many occasions. Like many people, I first heard of Ken back in the 1960s. Ken Gray, the All Black. That was back in the days when All Blacks were heroes and winners, and Ken was both. Robert Newcomb, an old friend of Ken, one of his oldest friends who went to school with him, told me that Ken started his rugby career as a halfback. Well, I found it hard to believe when I looked at him. He was such a giant of a man, not only in his size, but in many other ways. Robert said that he was good at all sport at school. He loved sailing, he loved speedboat racing, he loved anything to do with the sea, and he loved horse riding. But the Ken that I know best is Ken Gray, the political activist. Ken loved politics, local, national, international. And although his political colours were Labour, he mixed and made friends with people from all political persuasions. Traditional political enemies couldn't dislike Ken. They might have disagreed with what he said, but he was admired and accepted for his talents, his courage, his convictions, his principles, and his ability to be able to argue a political point and then walk away as a friend. Ken was an asset to the Labour Party. He brought a credibility to the party with him, particularly in the area of farming. And he was prepared to stand up for Labour Party policies before they became fashionable or trendy. His political career started right at the bottom where the hard work was done in local government. And those people who worked with him, have told me about his straight talking and about his determination to get things done. Ken made a considerable input into Labour Party policy through his involvement in the Primary Producers Council. He was one of the people who helped change attitudes and to formulate practical policies for farming within the Labour Party. But his real love was economic policies. And in the last difficult years of the last Labour government, Ken chaired the Economic Consultative Committee of the party. And of course he received flack from everybody. But he didn't give up or resign. He stayed there in an effort to draw together all those factions around a common economic argument. He often told me he thought that perhaps he'd suffered because of that, and I think perhaps he was right. Because over the years he did have political frustrations and disappointment, but his bloody-mindedness and his perseverance saw him win through. Hundreds of people up and down New Zealand were just delighted when Ken won the Western Hut nomination. Even people who had nothing to do with the Labour Party. And a person who travelled all the way from Rewa, an old friend, Barbara Newcombe, came down just to hear the result on that night. She sat outside the hall in the car because she wasn't allowed in the meeting, it was a private meeting. And halfway between when they were waiting to make the decision, Barbara ducked in and was pushed and had to buy a raffle ticket, which is traditional Labour Party fashion, and she walked out of there with Ken as a winner and herself as well. Ken had this ability to talk to everybody. He was interested in what people were saying and doing. And I believe it was his strength, but it was also his weakness. Ken canvassed for me in Horowhenua. He came up weekend after weekend to knock on doors. He said he loved talking to people. He loved hearing what they had to say about what was going on in the world and how you should put it to right. At the end of the day, we would gather around a bottle of beer, some potato chips, and continue the political talk. But as a canvasser, he must be one of the worst on record. He had one of the lowest productivity rates I've ever seen. He would go the whole day without stopping even for the customary stab or a lunch and sausage sandwich, and he would end up at the end of the day with 5 or 6 people having been visited. He was like that because everybody wanted to talk to him. They wanted to talk to him about rugby. They wanted to talk about politics or both. Although I never got much out of him in terms of the number of people he visited, I guarantee I got those votes. And many people would phone me after he had visited, and they would say, we had Ken Gray come to our house. And I knew if I'd gone there after that, it would have been an anticlimax. He was a person who helped many other people. He worked for his family, he worked for his friends, he worked for his community and for New Zealand. He was always busy, and because he was competent and willing, he was given some difficult and some very challenging jobs. He had a huge capacity for work, but he always had time for his friends. And I noticed just how easily Ken made friends, and many people admired him. And I think a little small example was a letter that Joy received in the last few days from a person who had helped change a tyre 25 years ago, who wrote to say how much she had admired Ken and how she'd watched his career over the years. For me, nobody has summed up Ken's progress as a person better than the Tom Scott cartoon in the Evening Post on Thursday night, which said, Ken Gray, all black, farmer, citizen, bloody good bloke.
Amen.
The next three recollections of Ken come from Gerald Kemba, Howard Stone and Simon Biss. And after Simon has spoken, the Whitireia Performing Arts will sing two tributes.
Rosano Fan, a Chinese architect from Berlin, was once asked, who designed the Grace house, was once asked why he designed such a big house for Ken and Joy and the family. He replied, because Ken is a very big man. And I know that Rosano was not only referring to Ken's size, but he was referring to the illustrious nature of Ken's mind and character, and to his very generous spirit, and his many admirable qualities. And in short, I think Lindsay Knight summed it up well in the Sunday Times yesterday when he referred to Ken's nobility. I feel deeply privileged to be given the opportunity today to talk about Ken. I know him as a rugby player, as a friend. There can be no debate that Ken was a great rugby player. On that score, I'm probably better to leave the issue to Wilson Winneray to talk about as a fellow forward and prop. But as a back, I particularly value two things about Ken as a rugby player. The first was that he was a great winner of the ball, number two in the line-out. And secondly, was his great mobility around the field. Well, fortunately, most of the time I was playing with Ken, both in Wellington and the All Blacks. But I do recall experiencing the power of the All Blacks in general and Ken Gray in particular in the final trial that they did one day. It was virtually the All Blacks versus the rest. And unfortunately, I was in the rest. Ken came round the back of the line-out, was called Willie away. And I think he spotted me as his Wellington vice captain, and that grin that we've heard about earlier this afternoon appeared on his face, and he said aside to me. I valiantly dived forward to make the tackle, but all I experienced was a downward thrust of the great forearm. My nose went into the hello to that back. Ken went on his merry way to score. I got to know Ken through rugby, on tour both in New Zealand and overseas in the UK. Ken was a great instigator of deep discussions. On a number of occasions, I noted in my diary that having sat next to Ken, and Ken has raised all sorts of questions, and I think he valued my opinion as a university student. I know he's rather misguided in that, but he was always interested in other people's opinions. And so we discussed a whole range of things. I think at that time, Ken and Joy had Andrew and Jane, so we would spend hours on the bus discussing the relative importance of hereditary as opposed to environmental factors and various theories of bringing up children. Those discussions have stood me in good stead since. Other occasions we talk about the meaning of life. In those days, to a degree, I think I operated under false pretenses with Ken. Ken was a great peeler back of the onion. He was always about 3 layers deeper than I was. But by 1970, I think he'd come to realise that his own great sense of fairness and justice and that his own integrity was there to be relied upon when he made that momentous decision in rugby terms not to do South Africa. He was relying on that great sense. And I believe that that decision was soon vindicated, and there have been even more so Another time, I went out there with a friend of mine and Ken saddled up the horses and we went for a ride. On other occasions, I was out there collecting manure from under the wool shed. I'll miss Ken's soft voice and his gentleness, his intense gaze up beneath those hooded eyes. When I think of those hooded eyes, it takes me back to pre-test team talk. Ken was not really one to be inspired really by words, but once he got out of the paddock, he certainly played the most inspired way. And on this occasion, there was great tension built up during the team talk. Those hooded eyes slowly coming down, was going to last the distance or whether he's going to go to sleep. And in fact, finally, the eyes closed. Nevertheless, Ken played a great game on that occasion. I'll miss his penetrating questioning and his wit and his great sense of humour. And most of all, I'll miss those deep discussions that we always initiate.
My association with Ken Gray has been about a short I've known Ken for 4 years now, and my association with him has been the world of local government, and in particular, the Wellington Regional Office. My recollections of him are associated with that, some humorous and some serious. I think probably the thing that impressed me most about Ken was that as a politician, he really cared. He cared about New Zealand, he cared about the region, what he was in it, he cared about his own local community. And I think because he cared, he would be speaking hard, maybe a little too hard. I know previous speakers, almost without exception, have referred to the late telephone calls and the early telephone calls. And anyone who has worked closely with them in the past will recognize that those telephone calls were mandatory. If you couldn't stand the telephone calls, you had a problem. And you could guarantee that